being here. This is our first hybrid development forum. And I know we have a few folks that are joining us online. For those of you that are here in person, welcome. Glad to see you. And for those online, welcome to you as well. Look forward to engaging with everyone. And we've got a lot of good information that we would like to share with you today and look forward to hearing from you all as well. I'm Stephen Roberts. I'm the Director of Land Use and Transportation. So our department does of course, the building, planning, zoning work, but we also build roads and maintain roads and do a variety of things related to transportation as well. I'm going to turn things over to Erin Wardell. Erin's our relatively new Planning and Development Services Manager. She's actually going to be the moderator for the better part of the program today. And then Mark, if you could put the agenda up, that would be great, just for a minute here. So I just want to give you a quick preview of the things that we're going to be running through. So Erin's just going to give some updates on planning and development services. And then Matt Craigie, who's the county's economic development manager, appreciate you being here, Matt, is going to give us a quick overview of the CPACE program, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. That's new to the county as well. And Erin's also going to run through a brief update of the climate friendly and equitable communities rules that are coming to us from the state. And then we'll have some time at the end here for wrap up and questions. And then staff will be able to hang around if you have questions and want to chat afterward. There will be a number of us around here. I appreciate our partners, Clean Water Services, and I saw some other agency staff here as well. So I think we're all here ready to answer questions or have chats with you all afterward. And so again, I appreciate everybody being here, and I will turn it over to Erin.
Good morning. As Stephen said, my name is Erin Wardell. I'm the Planning and Development Services Manager. Mark, if we could go to, or actually, do I have control of the slides now? I guess I can do them myself. Yay. Okay. So we usually start the development forums by talking about the goals of being here today. And so the purpose of the development forum is for staff to share information with you and also have the opportunity to hear from you, our customers, about how we can better support your needs. And then through those conversations to build more productive relationships. Our development forum principles are to deliver value. We want to provide a service to you that's a value, be proactive. This is an opportunity for staff to hear about concerns and issues and do our best to resolve those up front. We want to be really inclusive of all of our customers and be able to, again, develop those relationships with everyone. We want to be as efficient as possible. We know that you have a lot of development needs and are usually on tight timelines. We are too. And so we want to be as efficient as we can with the work that we provide. And this is a great opportunity to have a good conversation and really engage with the community. And we really want these forums to, at the end of the day, be interesting so that you're learning from them and that we're learning from you. So here's our agenda for today, which Stephen touched on. We're actually going to start with the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy presentation from Matt Craigie, our Economic Development Manager. And then I will cover an update on Planning and Development Services work and the climate friendly and equitable communities. And then we'll have time for more networking and snacks and coffee. So with that, I will turn it over to Matt. And Mark, can we have the CPACE presentation brought up? Here's your clicker.
All right. Good morning. How's everyone? Yay. Okay. I'm a little sleepy. I had a kid that was up in the middle of the night. You'd think that once they get past kindergarten, they'd be able to sleep, but they don't. So we'll get through this though here. So I'm Matt Craigie. I'm Washington County's Economic Development Manager. We started a new program called CPACE, Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. And I'm going to just have a few slides here to talk about that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions too, if you folks have questions. And also leave my cards here on the side or something if people want to talk afterwards. So Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, CPACE. What is CPACE? CPACE is a real estate finance program that incentivizes clean energy, energy efficiency, water efficiency, and seismic systems. The primary goal of the program is to promote resiliency and sustainability in the built environment. Eligibility is broad across all types of commercial properties. So basically everything but single family detached housing. So it can be multifamily. I think it's their definition of multifamily is 5 units or more, hotels, retail, commercial, industrial, anything in that kind of big commercial that as we think of commercial real estate in the larger, broader definition of commercial real estate. It can be used for new construction or retrofits of existing buildings. Examples of eligible improvements, again, it's focused on those improvements that are focused on sustainability and resilience. So improvements include things like EV charging stations, solar and wind energy, HVAC systems, boilers, furnaces, water conservation systems, and again, seismic upgrades. CPACE has been enabled in Oregon by state statute, and a county ordinance is required for it to work. So we went through that process last fall. We're in a period that we're calling a soft launch right now, which means we'll take your application. We don't have a website yet. We'll have that website soon, but we're taking applications right now. CPACE is active in many states and has been around for a number of years. In Oregon, it's currently active in 2 counties. In Multnomah County, the program is administered by Prosper Portland, the economic development agency for the city of Portland, with an IGA with Multnomah County. And they've actually gone so far as to rebrand it to their own program called Property Fit. So if you want to do some research about other programs and you're looking for Multnomah County's program, look up Property Fit instead of CPACE. That's what they're calling it. They have done 4 projects to date in Multnomah County. And they've used it for seismic upgrades, increased water and energy efficiency. And one really notable building that used this finance tool is the PAE building in downtown Portland. It met the rigorous performance standard of the Living Building Challenge, if you're familiar with that. It's kind of the gold standard for a good sustainable building these days. Deschutes County is one of the other counties that has a CPACE program, and I just heard from colleagues that it sounds like Hood River is also enacting a program. So we're seeing it pop up across Oregon. Clark County in Washington also has it, as do, like I mentioned, a number of different states. How does it work? At its most basic level, CPACE is a voluntary real estate financing tool that uses the public sector's lien and foreclosure systems to mitigate risk. CPACE programs are typically set to allow private lending financing to a private owner. The county financing, no county, we're not part of the deal at all. We don't handle the money at all. We're not a pass through. We just enable it to happen. That's done differently in some other CPACE programs where there is a cash flow that goes through the county. We just do a property lien, and there's a kind of a checklist application that we do. It's a very simplified process. So what does the process look like? It involves several steps, including identification and verification of improvements. Again, it's focused on those specific fixtures, those improvements within the building. They're going to get you to that high level of energy or water efficiency or seismic upgrades. Finance negotiations between private parties. So you'd work very closely with a CPACE capital provider and your senior lender. Then there's the recording of the property lien. This is what the CPACE program is all about. It leverages that stamping of the lien, that recording document, to mitigate some risk there with the financing tool. And then repayment of the private property owner to the private lender. Again, those transactions, those dollars don't pass through the county at all. Verification of the improvements and the performance can be conducted by a third party. And we do charge a small fee for that, for the whole process here. In the event of a default, a private lender can work with the county to push the project into foreclosure, in which case CPACE delinquencies would be enforced through a normal foreclosure process. To date, there have been very few CPACE foreclosures nationwide, very, very few. So again, our role is quite minimal. We work in establishing the eligibility, confirming verification of the improvements, recording the liens, and potentially in the case of a default, going through a foreclosure. But we don't anticipate that happening. We have very few of them. So why might you be interested in it? What are the private sector benefits? I think it offers a range of benefits. Again, it's an efficient tool to encourage building resilience in construction. Again, this is the primary purpose of the tool, is to enable and encourage the use of more climate-friendly and resilient building systems. As we've learned more about it, and you may be wondering why an economic development manager is talking about this program, is because as we review it, it looks like there are some economic benefits and it can act as a financial incentive. So it can lower a property owner's financial risk. It can potentially lower financing costs. And then, of course, these improvements can reduce your ongoing operating costs. So there is the potential there that this could be beneficial from both a risk and a finance standpoint for your project. And we recognize and are interested in new commercial development and understanding that that promotes economic growth, new jobs, spending, all of the economic development, great stuff. Risks and drawbacks. What are some things you should be paying attention to? The CPACE loan sits in second position after a senior lender. So this is a really a big point of contention, I think, and one of the reasons why it's doesn't fit for every project. So it's going to sit right there after taxes before senior debt. So you'd have to work very closely with your senior lender about that arrangement, because I know that not all of them like to get kind of bumped down in the stack. For new construction, the program is looking for higher performance in both energy and water efficiency. So we're asking for 5% above current code. I'm not the code expert. Maybe Steve, we have LUT here, so we could talk about what code we use. I think it's ASHRAE 90 for the 2019. Again, you can ask LUT about that. But as you prepare and think about what that building is going to look like from an energy performance standpoint, that's a higher bar that we're setting than that current code that the county uses. So for more information, you can reach out to me. I have my information. There's economic development. Also, I can distribute some cards here. I'd also recommend that you check out the CPACE Alliance website. So that is a nonprofit group that is kind of a consortium of a number of different CPACE capital providers and attorneys and others that do CPACE nationwide. They are a collection of the experts in this. And so if you're interested, I would say let's have a conversation, and then I can direct you to some folks through the CPACE Alliance to hear more specifics there. So I think my recommendation would also be CPACE might not work for every project, but when you're in the fundraising phase of your project and you're looking for capital, it's worth a consideration. It's worth giving a call to some of these capital providers, seeing if it's a good fit for your project. So that's the quick run through there. And I know I've gone through a little bit fast. And so I think I have a little bit more time if anyone has any questions right now about CPACE. Otherwise, I'd be happy to talk to folks afterwards too. Nope, all good. Okay, thank you. Aaron, who's next?
I was going to say, if there are any questions from our people in the Zoom room, you can use the raise hand feature there as well. So I'll just give a second and see if anybody online did have a question for Matt. We'll get him to come back up here if that happens. I don't see any hands going up.
All right.
Okay, great. Well, now you have Matt's contact information. So if questions do come up, feel free to reach out to him. So our next presentation is our building services and development review update. We'll just wait for those slides to come up. Great. Thanks, Mark. So the first topic we wanted to cover today are our upcoming fee increases. And so the objective of doing these fee increases is to achieve cost recovery for our target service levels and our target staffing levels. The Board of Commissioners on February 21st, after a couple of years of doing a fee assessment study and engaging in conversations with our stakeholders and with our elected officials, did vote to increase fees for building and current planning services by about 50%. What we had seen happen over time since our last really significant fee increase is that our staff costs were really outpacing the revenues that we were collecting. And so this is a one-time adjustment that we needed in order to make those fees come up and actually cover the staff costs of processing these applications. So that fee increase will be effective on July 1st of this year. We have had some questions from folks about the TDT rate. The TDT rate is not the same. It's an SDC and a tax. And so while the TDT rate will also increase, as it regularly does every year on July 1st, that'll be about a 6% increase. We used our typical methodology to calculate that. Other entities, SDCs, are likely also increasing as of July 1st. So you may want to take a look at the various SDCs as a part of your projects and see what those rates will be on July 1st. So as a part of increasing the fees for this one-time fee adjustment, the board also considered future actions, which we will take back to them next year, probably in February of next year for consideration. The first of those would be doing an annual fee increase on July 1st of each year that would reflect the actual increases of staff time. The benefit of doing it incrementally every year is that we keep up with those fee increases over time rather than doing a one-time large fee increase. So we think this is a really positive change and something that we should have done for the program a while back. We're also looking into the option to add a technology fee surcharge to our transactions. And again, this is something that could take effect July 1st of 2024 if the board directs us to do so. And the purpose of collecting that technology fee would be to allow us to pay for software and hardware upgrades that we need in order to continue providing a really good level of service. Sometimes we know that there's something out there that we could add to our system, but we just don't have the funds to be able to do it. We haven't determined yet our methodology for what this fee surcharge could look like or how much revenue we would need to collect from it, but that is something that staff are doing additional work on and we'll have prepared in about a year. So as a part of this fee increase, we received a lot of questions about the service that we provide to the community. We know that with our significant staffing shortages and revenue challenges in the last couple of years, we haven't been providing all of the services at the levels that we're used to providing. And so with this fee increase, we'd like to be able to achieve those target service levels again. Well, the first question is, what are those target service levels? How do you know if you're meeting them? So staff are currently going through an exercise of identifying what our target service levels are. We've been reviewing that document internally. We've also shared it with a few key stakeholders. If you would like the opportunity to review that, please reach out and let me know. I've talked to a couple of folks in the development community about it and received some feedback on it. So we'll have that document prepared and ready to share soon. The intent is to make it available online and then have it also available as a handout in our office at the counter. With the online tool, I'm thinking there's an opportunity to also share if we're seeing significant delays in our target service levels. So we'll talk a little bit about building inspections in a future slide. But for example, our typical target service level for building inspections is a next day inspection. Due to our staffing shortages, we're not meeting that target right now. So we have this idea that we could put this up on the website and let people know what the actual time delays are at any given point. And so that's something we'll be working on developing over the next few weeks and putting online. So this document, we think, will provide transparency to all of you in planning your projects and staging and phasing them. It also provides accountability for our staff. And I think it's a really useful training tool when we have new staff coming on board to let them know how quickly are they expected to do their work, and then they can work with their supervisors on how to achieve those target service levels. So there's a table here, and that's just an example of what these target service levels could look like. And this is only for county staff time. This wouldn't reflect how much time something sits back with our customers once we've sent it back for their review. So type 1 planning application, we would set a target service level of something like 1 business day to do the initial setup, 7 to 12 business days for that completeness review, and then the review and final decision within 20 to 25 business days. So it's exactly the type of thing that we were sending out for some feedback from some folks and making sure that it's complete for the services we provide. So you'll be hearing more about this. We're also doing some bigger picture process improvements around the department. I'm really working with staff teams to determine what efficiencies have they identified that they think that they can achieve if we were to make some process improvements. So there's a few things listed on this slide, which are some initiatives that we're working on. We are intending to update our project docs workflows to improve efficiencies for reviews. Many of you have been involved in conversations about concurrent review and how we implement concurrent review. A big part of that is improving our workflows to make sure they're most efficient for the staff we have. So that's an initiative that we're kicking off already. We're also really looking towards implementing the online applicant services OAS, and this would allow our clients to directly submit their permits. Other jurisdictions use this, so many of you are already familiar with it. I can tell you our permit technician team is pretty excited about implementing this. They see a lot of efficiencies and a lot of value for our team. So we'll be looking at implementing this hopefully sometime this year as well. It's connected somewhat with the workflows update. We're also working on doing a better job of documenting all of our processes. And again, this is really valuable for transparency purposes and for accountability purposes and for training new staff when they come on board. So really looking forward to having some good documentation of all of our various processes. We're evaluating all of our submittal forms and processes. For example, I always talk about the pre-application form when we talk about this. Requesting a pre-application requires you to print out the pre-application form and then mail it to us with your payment. I feel like in 2023, there's a better way to do that. So we're going to be working on improving some of our processes so that it can be possible to submit those electronically. Someone on staff will receive an email and can set up your pre-application conference. And then finally, we'll be looking at implementing electronic submissions for our development review and current planning staff and moving away from using paper with that staff team. So these are some pretty big changes and it'll take us a little while to get there, but this is what we're using as our work plan for moving forward. So I want to talk a little bit about what we expect to have happen around July 1st and how we're hoping to be able to manage workload, again, reflecting that we're still somewhat short-staffed. So our permit technician team has been working on thinking ahead, getting ahead of expecting to see a surge in applications. So we're asking for you, our customers, to work with us on this and acknowledge that we're doing the best we can, but we do have some staff limitations. So we have some guidelines we'll be asking for with permit submittals over the next couple of months. The first is to ask people to please submit only one application per email, except for townhomes. To ensure a faster pre-screening process, please ensure that you've paid your intake fees and that your plan set is complete when it's submitted. Please limit submittals to 10 building applications per week. And I know this has caused a little bit of heartburn when people saw this. If you have a project and you just need to submit more than that, let us know. And we'll work with you to see how we can accommodate that submittal and make sure that that's actually really necessary the way that you think that it needs to work and the way that we think it needs to work. So we're happy to work with any customers. Just reach out to us and let us know what your specific needs are. Once permits are submitted in our system, you'll have 30 days to upload your plans and pay your review fees. We're a little bit worried about receiving a surge of incomplete applications. Those will be holding up space in the queue. They'll be ahead of complete applications and they're taking up staff time. So we want to make sure if staff are spending time on something that it's a real application and it's really ready to go. Otherwise, it's not fair to hold that space in line. So we're asking you to make sure things are complete, make sure you're ready to move forward on that permit. And applications will be processed in the order that they're received. So again, we know some of these may be challenging for our community. If you have questions, if you think that you're going to have a problem with this, please reach out. Let us know. We'll have a conversation about it. And finally, I want to talk about our inspection delays that I know our customers have been experiencing. It's been a really challenging time for us. We ended up really short-staffed on our inspection team due to a number of different factors that unfortunately all happened at the same time. We had some staff leave for other jobs, some retirements, some medical leaves, all happened at the same time. And it's difficult to find qualified inspectors. We know all the jurisdictions in Oregon are suffering from this shortage right now. It's just hard to find people. But we made really good progress in 2 successful recruitments. So we have 5 new inspectors on board. 1 already started, and he's a former county employee, so he was able to immediately jump back out in the field, which was great. We have 4 more who will be starting shortly. So 2 starting on Monday, 2 more are relocating into the area. I'm pretty happy about that because it feels like the jurisdictions are all stealing staff from each other. So it's nice to bring in some people from outside of the area as well and not just steal from another jurisdiction. Staff are also using video and photo inspections when they can. And this tends to be for smaller jobs. It tends to be for re-inspects, but we are working with our inspectors to make sure that they know that they can do that. It saves them some travel time. If it's a pretty simple job and they feel comfortable with that, it's something we want to encourage as much as possible. So this is a possibility you may see happening out in the field a little bit more. And with these new staff coming on board, we hope to return to our usual timelines of calling and getting an inspection the next day over the next couple of weeks and months. We do still have 2 vacancies for inspectors, for a plumbing specialist and electrical specialist. And so we'll be looking to fill those vacancies over the next few months as well. It's a little challenging. Again, it's challenging to recruit inspectors, really challenging to recruit specialized inspectors. And so we may hold those open as continuous recruitments until we can find qualified applicants for that. So look for those postings. If you know folks who have those specialties and would like to work for Washington County, we would love to see their application. And actually, one other thing I want to mention that we didn't have a slide for is that we have prepared our draft planning work program for the next 2 years. We presented that to the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday and the Planning Commission last night. It will be shared for broader public comment over about the next 6 weeks. And so expect to see that. And if you'd like to weigh in on our planning initiatives over the next 2 years, we'd like to receive your feedback there. And that's all that I have for this presentation. So are there any questions? Matt, go ahead.
As far as the permits being reviewed in the order received.
Mhm.
Is there any way that we look at expediting certain reviews like a demo permit? You and I have talked about this before. That's a permit that used to be issued over the counter in 30 minutes
Mhm.
to get it done. Having to wait for a week or two could be a real problem. So it's a very short review. Is that something that can be kind of prioritized as we are gonna take this in front of all of those other reviews that are.
So for people online who maybe couldn't hear Matt's question, Matt's asking about permits being reviewed in the order they're received, and if it's possible to expedite a quick review such as a demo permit and not hold it up in the line behind permits that are much more extensive and take a longer time. I do think that's something that our staff can take a look at. I'm looking at Casey Levy, our supervisor in the back. She's nodding. So I think that is something that, her team, as much as possible, does try to stick with the submittals in the order they received. But we have staff who can spend a day getting through some of those quicker applications as well, and they try to balance their workload that way too. And so sometimes we will be pulling some of those, like you said, quicker, easier to review permits just so we can get them off the list. That gives us more time to focus on the more complicated applications. So yes, generally we'll stick to the order they're received, but with some exceptions when it's easy for our workflow. Any other questions in the room? Or in the Zoom room, you can raise your hand if you have questions. It's an easy group. No more questions. Okay, great. Well, we'll go to our next presentation, then we'll have lots of time for talking and you can ask questions afterwards as well. So we're going to talk now about some new state rules for climate-friendly and equitable communities. And folks may have been hearing about these rules over about the last year or so. I was not supposed to do this presentation today. One of our senior planners was supposed to cover this material, but he is sick and we asked him to keep his germs at home. So I'm going to cover his slides for him. So the climate friendly and equitable communities rules, we call them CPACE for short. It's a terrible acronym, but it's easier to say than all the words. And so this was based on an executive order by former Governor Brown in March of 2020, which was to exercise any and all authority and discretion to meet Oregon's climate goals. So with that guidance, the Land Conservation and Development Commission adopted land use, building, and transportation planning rules for jurisdictions within Oregon's metropolitan areas, effective in July of 22. And these rules really have some pretty significant implications for how we do planning in the state of Oregon. There are rules that apply to land use and building, and those talk about designating walkable climate-friendly areas in your comprehensive plans, reforms to parking management, which is what we'll talk about primarily today because that's the first part of the rules to come into effect, providing for pedestrian-friendly and connected communities. That has to do with transportation planning requirements as well. And then on the transportation side, planning for multimodal transportation, high quality ped, bike, and transit infrastructure, which we already do in Washington County. That's not a big change for us. To prioritize transportation projects that meet climate and equity goals, and then to reduce vehicle miles traveled per capita through transportation planning. So these rules take effect incrementally, and there's still quite a bit of work happening at the state to refine them and make some technical fixes to the rules as drafted. This year, we have two different phases of parking requirements coming into play. We'll talk about those in the next few slides. And then in the future, we will have land use requirements to adopt those climate-friendly areas, transportation performance standards, meaning how we evaluate our transportation system and determine what projects to build, and then requirements for how we update our transportation system plans. The rules do provide options for local jurisdictions to request alternative implementation for certain elements, and the county has requested a 2-year delay in implementing some of the parking requirements, which I'll talk about now. So parking reform goes into effect in two different phases. Parking reform A took effect on January 1st of 2023. That already happened. So we weren't able to update our community development code in order to get ahead of these rules coming into play. Most jurisdictions in the state couldn't, only a couple have already implemented this through their code documents. So we are implementing that through staff guidance. Parking Reform B takes effect July 1st of 23. And Parking Reform B is the part that we can request an extension to. We were not able to request any kind of extension to Parking Reform A. We get a lot of questions about these parking rules and whether they apply to our ADA rules for parking. The ADA Act still applies to any parking that is voluntarily provided, but it does change how we require that in our code. So parking reform A, the part that's already in effect, says that jurisdictions may not require more than one parking space per unit for residential development, that jurisdictions may not require any minimum parking for a list of specific development types. And these are things like affordable housing, very small single occupancy units, daycares, publicly supported housing, and shelters. Jurisdictions additionally may not require parking for any development that is within a certain proximity to bus or light rail lines. And that information specifically is up on the slide. So as I said, our community development code is not yet updated. Staff are applying these rules directly. When they see a development application come in, they determine if it's one of these exempted types, and then they determine the location. And then we see what our minimum parking requirement can be. We do intend to update our community development code to reflect these at some point in the future. This is what the transit corridor rule looks like on the ground, if you can see from the map. So it's a half a mile of a frequent service bus line, and I think it's a 3/4 mile of light rail line. So it really covers a lot of the urban area of Washington County. This map shows within the cities as well. We don't obviously enforce these rules within the cities. They do their own development application processes, but they're under the same rules as us. And so this is essentially what those parking requirements look like. And as you can see, it really does cover most of the urban area. There's another rule snuck in there that took effect on April 1st, which says that new multifamily residential buildings with 5 or more units must provide capacity for electric vehicle charging for 40% of their parking spaces. And this is a little bit in between planning rules and building code rules. And so we've talked on the staff level again about how to actually implement this piece of the rules, but that did take effect earlier this month. So our next steps for implementing this work: the Planning Commission has a work session in May. They've already heard about it a couple of times. Staff were directed by the board to request from the Department of Land Conservation and Development a 2-year delay in implementing the Parking Reform B requirements. The Parking Reform B requirements are pretty extensive as far as the easy path is to remove all minimum parking in all areas from your development code. The harder path is to implement some form of parking management program. So county staff need more time to do technical analysis of those options. We'll also continue tracking these regulatory requirements. We're expecting LCDC, actually, they have a hearing today on these rules, and we'll be directing staff to make some changes. So later today, we'll know what some of those changes are. They have another hearing in November where they'll consider further changes. Again, this is part of the reason we want that delay. It doesn't really make sense for us to do a lot of work and amend our community development code if the rules are changing on us underneath us while we're developing those proposed ordinances. And so we'd prefer to wait until they're done and then run the ordinances through our process. So we will be preparing a recommendation for the scheduling of those future ordinances in order to implement Parking Reform B, and then a whole slew of other ordinances to respond to the other land use requirements and the other transportation system planning requirements as we have a better understanding of them and when these rules take effect. Lots more to come on this. I think that was it for our slides. So any questions on the climate friendly and equitable communities rules? We actually all have a ton of questions about these rules. We're still trying to digest them. So no hands in the room and no hands on Zoom. Great. Well, with that, I think we can wrap it up and take any general questions. Or people can go grab another cup of coffee, which sounds great to me. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate your time. Please follow up with staff if you have any questions about the material presented today.